What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video, and the New York Jets have signed a wide receiver today. Josh Reynolds is the latest addition to the New York Jets. According to reports, the Jets have signed wide receiver Josh Reynolds to a one-year deal, which is worth up to $5 million. Now, Reynolds has a connection with both the GM and the coaching staff. So last year, he played for the Denver Broncos, where Darren Mucci came from, and he also spent some time from 2021 through 2023 with the Detroit Lions, overlapping with not only Aaron Glenn, but offensive coordinator Tanner Engstrand. Reynolds is a 6'3", 192-pound outside receiver entering his age 30 season. So not necessarily on the younger side. The Jets have taken a lot of swings on guys in their mid-20s, but this is a older veteran who the New York Jets are taking a swing on that has ties to both the GM and once again the coaching staff. And honestly, outside of a 2020 season with the Rams, in 22 and 23 were arguably his two most productive years, both with the Detroit Lions. In 2022, he had 38 catches for 479 yards and 3 touchdowns. 2023, much better. He was essentially the Detroit Lions' number 2 wide receiver that year. Had 40 catches, 608 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Now, he was the number two wide receiver, but he was the number 4 options in targets. Amon-Ra St. Brown led the way with a significant amount of targets. Then came Sam Laporta, number 2, Jahmyr Gibbs, number 3, and Josh Reynolds, number 4. So while, yes, technically a wide receiver 2, he was not second most in targets in the passing attack. In fact, it went wide receiver 1, tight end 1, running back 1, and then wide receiver 2. For the New York Jets, I would expect a similar type of trajectory. I would imagine Garrett Wilson is going to be number 1 in targets, assuming health for everyone. I would think that either Breece Hall or whoever ends up being tight end number 1 that the New York Jets add, likely through the NFL draft, will be second or third. Whoever isn't second will be third. And then possibly Josh Reynolds or whoever is wide receiver 2 will be number 4. It's not a guarantee that Reynolds is going to be the number 2 wide receiver on this team, but at least he has experience as a professional starting outside receiver. He's a very good contested catch player when he's on his game. 57.1% contested catch rate in 2023, 66.7 contested catch rate in 2022. Last year had an incredibly bizarre season. We'll talk about it. It was very strange. So it started off about as well as you can. 5 catches for 45 yards, 4 for 93, and 3 for 36 with the Denver Broncos. He signed a 2-year deal with the Broncos. And then in week 4 against the New York Jets, he had 2 targets but no catches. And then in week 5, 1 catch on 2 targets. He was hurt in week 5. With a hand injury and was placed on IR by the Denver Broncos. Okay, this is when things start to get a little bit more bizarre. Again, first 3 games of the year looks at least like a functioning wide receiver in an offense, right? Okay, so a week after the injury, he was at a strip club and ends up getting shot in the arm and the back of the head. Clearly still okay as he, survives. The injuries were listed as minor, but a week after the injury, ends up getting, unfortunately, a target of being shot. Later on in the year, he was waived by the Denver Broncos and then claimed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he ended up playing 4 games towards the end of the year for the Jacksonville Jaguars and had just 1 catch in that game. So played in 9 total games last year, was pretty much not much of a factor for most of the year. Again, had a very strange year. So, is it going to be a repeat of what we saw in 2024, where he was not a major factor for the 9 games he played and through obviously half of the season where he was unable to play? Or can we see a version that's closer to the 22 or 23 version where he's 479 yards and 608 receiving yards? I hope it's somewhere closer to the 600 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns, because the Jets don't really have someone on their roster outside of, I guess, technically Allen Lazard, who is still here, who's played as a starting outside receiver before. I would be surprised, honestly, if Allen Lazard sticks around. I don't see how that ends up happening. And clearly the Jets need to add more to this position into the NFL draft. But this is a one-year flyer on a guy who Tanner Engstrand has worked with and had success with. Aaron Glenn clearly vouches for him. Darren Muji, who was a part of the staff that originally signed him, likes him. And now he's being brought into the New York Jets. So what are expectations? Hard to say. Is it going to be the 600 yards or is it going to be like 200 receiving yards? I'm hoping that he's a wide receiver, I don't know, likely a wide receiver 2 or 3 this year for the Jets. It's not pretty, but as I referenced, I would imagine Garrett Wilson, number 1 in targets, running back and tight end are 2 and 3 in whichever order you want to put them in. And then beyond that, the Jets need to find someone who could be 4, 5, 6 in targets. Can Josh Reynolds find himself somewhere in that spot? That would be my guess. Let me know your thoughts on the signing down below in the comments. I'm Matt O'Leary. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you next time.